Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I hope that everyone is doing well today and spending quality time with their families. And I hope you are all safe in these trying times. So this will be my first free online lecture on radiation physics, specifically with the radiation interactions with matter. So I just came up with this idea to share some information, especially to the students, or also especially to the graduating students who will be taking the board exam. So I am trying to help you in my own little way to share knowledge to you and to make you understand better about certain topics in our field that are also uh, coming out or coming out sa board exams. So we will discuss today the radiation interactions with matter, and in our field, we are more focused with 5 interactions with matter. So these are the classical scattering, the Compton scattering, photoelectric effect, the pair production, and the photodisintegration. So these are the interactions that are important to us as rad techs. So we should be able to understand these 5, and I am going to discuss it to you in simple terms so para mas maintindihan po ng lahat. So we have the classical scattering, Compton, photoelectric effect, pair production, and photodisintegration. So please remember that these 3, yung tatlong ito, yung classical, Compton, and photoelectric effect, are the ones that are usually occur in diagnostic imaging. This one naman, per production, this is very important, especially in the field of positron emission tomography. So I will discuss why is it important in PET, the pair production. And the photodisintegration, this type of interaction seldom occurs, so very rare siya mag-occur, and they only occur usually if there are nuclear power plant accidents, atomic bombings, and those incidents or incidents like that. So in classical scattering, so this usually occurs if the energy of the radiation is about approximately less than 10 keV. So if you have remembered in your previous lessons, the energy in our field is expressed in electron volt. While in the in the physics, general physics that we are discussing, so the energy of sorry for the intermission of the barking. It's okay. The energy is expressed in joules. Okay? So usually when we are learning sa general physics, the unit of energy is expressed in joules. So this is a symbol. While in our field, in radiology, the unit of energy is expressed in electron volts. Okay? So both again, to make it more clear, the unit of energies can either be expressed in joules or in electron volt. So electron volt is used specifically in our field, which is the radiology field. So this classical scattering occurs when the energy is less than 10 keV or kilo electron volts. And because of this premise, so very seldom din siya mag-occur. Okay? So very seldom siya mag-occur. It's because hindi naman tayo gumagamit ng ganito kababang energy ng X-rays. And here in the Philippines, we are more concerned with the radiation received by the patient. So therefore, we are using high KVP technique and low MAS technique. Okay, so we will erase this one. So I have mentioned that here in the Philippines, we are more concerned with the dose of the patient. And the dose of the patient, if you can remember again, is controlled by the MAS because MAS primarily controls the intensity. Intensity, exposure, exposure to radiation, or in simple term, the MAS controls the number of X-rays. And the higher the MAS, the greater the number of X-rays. And when there are greater number of X-rays, there will also be higher number of X-rays that will be absorbed by the patient. So higher patient dose. And because again, as I have mentioned, the MAS controls the number of X-rays. Therefore, the higher the MAS, the greater the number of X-rays produced. Also, it will be higher patient dose. And we don't like that. So, we use here in the Philippines low MAS. And for the KBP, it is responsible for the energy of X-rays. So, again, let's erase this one. So this is responsible for the energy of X-rays. So the higher the KBP, the higher the energy produced. And therefore, the higher the energy produced, so it can more penetrate the patient. So pag sinabi nating penetrate, so it will pass through the patient. So there will be greater number of X-rays that will pass through the patient as compared to the absorbed X-ray. So, ibig sabihin, kapag mataas yung KBP natin, so magiging energetic siya. And dahil mataas ang kanyang energy, so walang energy gap, dahil mataas ang kanyang energy, so most likely, it will pass through the patient and it will expose our radiographic film. So not all the X-rays with higher energy will pass through the patient and will go through our film. So yung iba nagiging scatter radiation, and we will not discuss more on that in this discussion or in this lecture. So that is, again, classical scattering. Very rare din siya nangyayari kasi hindi naman tayo gumagamit ng low energy X-rays. Yung ginagamit natin are high energy X-rays by utilizing the high KBP technique. For Compton scattering, this is also very important because of the backscatter radiation. So, backscatter radiation, and yung backscatter radiation na ito are very hazardous sa radtech. Okay, tandaan po natin yung, sorry. So, I will erase muna this one. So, yung Compton scattering is very important to learn, especially sa ating mga radtech because of the backscatter radiation produced during this scattering. And this backscatter radiation, as I have mentioned, is hazardous sa radtech. So, sa radtech siya. Okay? So, please take note of that. Hazardous sa radtech. So, i-discuss ko siya later why it is hazardous sa radtech. Then, number 3, photoelectric effect. So, this is the most important. So, ito yung pinaka-importante sa lahat because the photoelectric effect is responsible for what we see in the radiograph. Ibig sabihin, because of this effect or because of this scattering, we can differentiate soft tissue from bony structures. Okay, so I will also discuss that on the succeeding slides. For the pair production, as I have mentioned, this is important sa PET because of the production of the positron. So, it releases positron. which is used in the positron emission tomography, which is a division of nuclear medicine. And photodisintegration, as I have mentioned earlier, is important to know, although it seldom occurs, just like classical scattering. This is also important to know because of the hazard that can pose not just to radtech, so hazard siya sa lahat. So if you can remember yung mga nangyari sa Chernobyl, sa Fukushima, so until now, the place is like a ghost town because it is still radioactive. Okay, so we will continue sa next slide. So this is an example of a classical scattering. Not an example actually. This is the illustration of how classical scattering occurs. Okay, so please take note. So for example, we have here the atom. This is the nucleus. These are the electrons. Then we have here the incident photon. And we have the scattered photon. Remember, the incident photon, so we call this incident photon. So incident photon or incident radiation or incident X-ray. So pag dito pa lang siya sa labas ng atom, it is called incident photon. Pag nakalabas na siya, siya pa rin to. So sasabihin niya, ako lang to oh. So ang tawag na sa kanya is scattered photon. Scattered photon or scattered radiation or scattered beam, whatever you like it to call. So incident, pagpapasok, paglabas niya, ang tawag sa kanya is scattered. In classical scattering, as you can see a while ago sa animation, so walang ionization. So no ionization. So, wala siyang ionization, there is excitation. So, pag sinabi natin ionization, it is the removal, if you can still recall, removal of electrons within an atom. Okay? So, removal. So, in some cases, it is removal or addition. So, removal or addition. So, i-explain ko bakit may addition siya. So, it is again, ionization is simply the removal of electrons within an atom. So, dito, dumaan lang siya, and then lumabas siya. But, it changes direction. As you can see, hindi siya diretso papunta rito. It changes direction. Pero, walang na-remove na electron. Dumaan lang siya. So, therefore, yung nangyari lang is excitation. Okay? So, there is an excitation because nung dumaan yung incident photon dito, it causes this atom to vibrate. So, parang si crush lang na dumaan and then umasa ka pero hindi ka naman kinausap ni crush, dumaan lang siya. So, nag-vibrate yung atom, kinilig, and then there is a production of heat. So, nag-blush ka. Okay? So, dumaan lang siya. It causes excitation. So, this atom will vibrate and it will cause heat. And it will go out of the atom. So, lalabas lang siya but in different direction na. And also take note that in this scattering, the classical scattering, the wavelength here is the wavelength. The wavelength, again, the wavelength is the distance from crest to crest or from valley to valley. So the wavelength of the incident photon, so sub I, is equal to the wavelength of the scattered photon. So kung ano yung wavelength niya pagpasok, ganon din yung wavelength niya paglabas. Ibig sabihin, yung energy niya is the same as it enters and remains the same as it goes outside or comes outside or exits the atom. So again, that is for classical scattering. No ionization, only excitation. The wavelength of the incident photon is the same as the wavelength of the scattered photon, but it changes direction. There is no ionization, only excitation, thus it causes this atom to vibrate and produce heat. So that is classical scattering. So again, that is the incident photon and this is the scattered photon. Okay, next for the Compton scattering. So we have here the incident photon. We have here the atom. So as you can see, there is a removal of the outer shell electron. So outer shell electron. So na-remove siya. Ito na siya ngayon. So we have here the incident photon, yung papasok pa lang. Ang paglabas niya, eto na siya. So we have the scattered photon. Ito yung scattered photon natin. And then the removed electron is what we call the Compton electron, also called the recoil electron or the secondary electron. So magkapareho lang sila, iba-ibang term lang. Compton electron, recoil electron, and secondary electron. As you can see in Compton scattering, there is now ionization. May na-remove na electron. Okay? And also take note that the energy or the wavelength, the wavelength of the incident photon, ito yung wavelength niya, is greater than the wavelength of the scattered photon. So, medyo mahina na yung energy niya paglabas kasi yung ibang energy ni incident photon is na-transfer dito sa Compton electron or sa na-ionized na electron. So, yung ibang energy niya nandito, yung iba dito sa scattered photon. So, sabi ko kanina dun sa introduction natin, hazardous ang Compton scattering sa radtech because of the backscatter radiation. Ito siya. So, this ionized electron or this removed electron has enough or sufficient energy to ionize other atom as well. So, dahil may enough energy siya na nakuha niya partly dito sa incident photon, once this electron will interact with other atoms, so may mga atoms siya na madadaanan later, because it has enough energy, it can cause another ionization. So, kung ilang atom ang madaanan niya, ilang beses din siyang mag-ionize. So, that will be the backscatter radiation, which is hazardous again sa radtech. Okay? So, for example, if this is the atom of our patient, so there is ionization now. So, this is the backscatter radiation that we call. Ito yung backscatter radiation natin and also the Compton electron. So, both possess enough energy to ionize other atom. So, yung itong scatter radiation, pag after exposure sa patient, sino ang unang-unang lumalapit sa patient? Diba tayong mga radtech? Kasi kukunin natin yung cassette, especially sa conventional x-ray. So, kasi tayo yung unang-unang lumalapit sa patient after exposure, yung scatter radiation from the patient as well as the Compton electron will be absorbed by the radtech. Kaya hazardous siya. Okay? So, that is for Compton scattering. So, backscatter radiation, ito yung scattered photon or scattered radiation, which is hazardous sa radtech because it possesses sufficient or enough energy to ionize other atoms as it passes through. So, there is also a slight change in direction, pero mas energetic ito compare na dito. Unlike kanina dun sa ating classical scattering, pareho lang yung energy pagpasok and paglabas because wala siyang na-ionize na electron. Okay, so that is for Compton scattering. So, tandaan lang, hazardous sa radtech. Hazardous to radtech. So, next we have the photoelectric effect. So, we have here the atoms. Then we have the incident photon. So, as you can see, there is ionization in the K shell. So, kanina, sa Compton scattering, sa Compton, yung ionization occurs sa outer shell. Sa photoelectric effect, yung ionization occurs at the K shell. Okay? So, as you can see, yung wavelength niya, mas energetic na siya. And also, if you notice, wala tayo ritong scattered photon because the incident photon is absorbed by the K shell. Okay? So, yung keyword nyo sa photoelectric effect is absorb. Okay? Absorb, absorbed, absorption. Okay? So, no scatter radiation because it was absorbed. But there is ionization. So, may ionization tayo sa K shell. Okay, so there is ionization sa K shell. Ito siya. And there is a removed electron. The removed electron is also called a photoelectron. Sometimes, sa ibang reference books, it is also called a recoil electron or the secondary electron. Okay? So, pareho sila ng Compton electron. Compton electron or recoil electron or secondary electron. Sa photoelectric effect naman, photoelectron, recoil electron or secondary electron. Okay? So, since there is a missing electron in the K shell, there should be filling up. So, hindi kasi pwede na kulang ang electron sa loob, kaya kailangan may filling up. So, yung void dito will be replaced or will be filled up by the electrons from the succeeding shell. So, yan yung mangyayari. Sige, replace pa rin or fill up, then fill up. So, dito, since this is the last shell, outer shell, so okay lang na kulang siya. Pero dito sa loob ng mga shells, dapat kompleto. So, during the filling up, or the transition, so yan yung mga keywords natin, transition or jumping, or transfer. Kasi sa board exam minsan, yan yung ginagamit ng mga terms. So, during the transfer of outer electron to the inner shell, during the filling up of outer electrons to the inner shell, during the transition of the outer shell to the inner shell, or during the jumping of the outer shell to the inner shell, there is an energy release, as you can see kanina. So, habang nagtatransfer siya from outside to inside, may nare-release na energy. And this released energy is what we call the characteristic X-ray. So, ibig sabihin, characteristic X-rays are produced when there is a transfer or filling up or transition or jumping of outer shell to the inner shell. So, to make it simple, nagkakaroon ng characteristic X-rays if nag-transfer ang outer shell electron papunta sa inner shell. So, ito yung mga keywords nyo ha. So, kahit anong term yung gamitin dyan, ganun pa rin ang result niya. Production of characteristic X-rays. So, to make it simple, again, characteristic X-rays are produced when the outer shell electron transfers from outer to inner shell, outer to inner shell, outer to inner shell. Transverse, nag-fill up, transition, or jumping. Okay? That is characteristic X-rays. So, for photoelectric effect, as I have said, sa introduction din natin kanina, so kailangan mangyari ang photoelectric effect sa bawat exposure natin sa patient. Kasi pag walang photoelectric effect, hindi natin ma-differentiate yung bony structures from soft tissue. So, makikita natin, sabi ko kanina, is yung incident photon is absorbed in this portion, in the K shell. Okay, na-absorb siya dito. And because of that absorption, so it provides us a white contrast. It provides us a white contrast, which is usually a bony structure. So, if you have noticed sa mga chest x-rays natin, which is the most common examination, so yung bones ng patient is, or yung bones na makikita sa radiograph is puti. So, that is the good effect of photoelectric effect. On the other hand, because of this absorption, it increases patient dose. So, bakit nag-increase ang patient dose? Dahil yung radiation is absorbed in the body or specifically sa atom ng part ng patient. Okay? So, that is the bad effect. So, again, sa photoelectric effect, because of this absorption, we have a good and bad effect. Yung good effect niya is it gives white contrast. So, mas madali nating ma-identify yung structure sa radiograph. And at the same time, yung bad effect niya is increased patient dose. These two, yung white contrast and patient dose, or yung good effect and bad effect, is because of the absorption. Okay? So, I hope that is clear. So, in addition, photoelectric effect was discovered by Albert Einstein. So, Albert Einstein. So, it was discovered by Albert Einstein. Pero actually, yung first nag-demonstrate or nag-explain ng photoelectric effect was Heinrich Hertz. Kaya lang hindi siya masyadong nag-dwell sa theory na ito or sa phenomenon na ito. It was Albert Einstein who was credited for the discovery of photoelectric effect. Okay? So, next we have the pair production. So, again, we have here the incident photon. So in the pair production, there is also no ionization. Walang ionization as you can see. There is just a splitting of this incident photon. So dito siya nangyayari sa nuclear space. So yung keyword nyo is nuclear space. So in order for pair production to occur, the energy of the incident photon must be greater than or equal to 1.022 mega electron volts. Pag yung energy niya is below 1.022 MeV, so hindi mangyayari ang pair production. Okay? So again, kailangan yung energy ng incident photon natin is greater than or equal to 1.022 MeV in order for the pair production to occur. And then, it will not interact, it will not ionize electrons from any shell. Dito lang siya sa nuclear space. When we say nuclear space, it is the space between the K shell and the nucleus. So, itong part na to, this is the nuclear space. So, pagdating sa nuclear space, this incident photon will split into two electrons. So, two electrons with opposite charge. Okay? So, yung isang electron is negative, yung isang electron is positive. So, don't confuse this with the electrons that we know from the outer shell. So, yung mga electrons dito, they are all negative. So, actually, they are not electrons, but for simpler explanation or discussion, we will call this electron. Kasi sa quantum physics, iba yung terms nila. So, sa atin, as a rad tech, hindi naman natin kailangan ng ganong kalalim na understanding. So, ito lang yung term na gagamitin natin. So, electrons with opposite charges. So, isa negative, we call this the negatron. And the positive one here is we call it the positron. So, they have opposite charges. Okay? So, nag-split sila. So, pair production is the splitting. Okay? So, nag-split siya into two electrons with opposite charges. And the opposite of pair production is what we call the, erase natin. So, the opposite of pair production is annihilation process. Annihilation process. So, ang opposite niya is annihilation process because annihilation process is the combination. So, ito, nag-split into two. Yung annihilation process, nag-combine yung dalawang electrons with opposite charges. So, since this is negative and this is positive, so later, they will have to meet with each other. So, they will have their forever. Okay? So, negative and positive will attract, and when their energies are combined, so annihilation process occurs. Okay? So, since the energy of this is at least 1.022 MeV, when it splits, the energy of this negative electron or the negatron is half of this, which is 0.511 MeV or 511 keV. This positron will also have the same energy, 0.511 MeV or 511 keV. Okay? So, they will divide the 1.022 MeV energy of this incident photon. And later, when annihilation process occurs, their energies will also be combined. Okay? So, it will now again become 1.022 MeV. So, it follows the law of conservation of energy. So, to summarize, pair production, there is no ionization, but the incident photon splits at the nuclear space. So, it splits into two electrons with opposite charges. And the energy of each electron is 0.511 MeV or 511 keV. Later, when they unite, because one is negative and the other is positive, when they unite or when they combine, the process is called annihilation process. Okay? So, that is for pair production. And as I have mentioned earlier, pair production is important in positron emission tomography because of this positron, which we are using in this field. And lastly, for the photodisintegration, so ito lang siya. This is, dito ko na siya i-draw. This is the nucleus. So we have here the electrons, for example. So this is the incident photon. So incident photon, it will bombard. So yung keyword naman natin sa photodisintegration is bombard. Bombard or destroy the nucleus. Okay, sa nucleus siya mismo. So yung pair production natin, dito siya nangyari sa nuclear space. Yung photodisintegration, dito sa nangyari sa nucleus mismo. The incident photon, because it has very high energy, greater than or equal to 7 MeV ang kailangan. Below 7 MeV, hindi mangyayari ang photodisintegration. So, pwedeng mangyari lang pair production, photoelectric effect, Compton, and classical. Pero pag umabot siya ng 7 MeV and greater, photodisintegration will occur, which means that this incident photon will destroy or bombard the nucleus of the atom. And because this is bombarded or destroyed, so it will produce nuclear fragments. Nuclear fragments. Ito siya, yung nuclear fragments. These nuclear fragments can be in a form of alpha, beta, gamma, and other nuclear fragments. So, this type of radiation coming from the nucleus are very dangerous or hazardous, not just to radtex, but to all the people who are around a certain mile radius or vicinity or the area. So that is for photo disintegration. Okay, so I will erase it now. So to summarize what we have discussed, so I have listed here the difference. So in classical scattering, walang ionization. Sa Compton, there is ionization sa outer shell. Sa photoelectric effect, ionization sa inner shell or sa K-shell. Pair production, walang ionization. Nangyari yung pag-split sa nuclear space. Photodisintegration, wala ding ionization. Instead, it bombards or destroys the nucleus, producing nuclear fragments. Okay? So, sa classical scattering, nangyayari siya sa diagnostic radiology, pero very, very seldom. Kasi sabi ko nga, it uses low energy X-rays. So, less than 10 keV. So, hindi naman tayo usually gumagamit ng 10 keV. So, 1 keV is approximately 1 kVp. So, kung pag 10 keV, that is also about 10 kVp. So, normally, hindi naman tayo gumagamit ng 10 kVp. So, usually, ginagamit natin nga sa mamo, pinakamababa is 19 or 15. So, that is all still above the 10 keV. So, the probability that it will occur is about 5 to 10%. So, mababa lang yung chance na mangyayari ang classical scattering. So, walang secondary electron kasi wala ngang ionization. So, there is scattered X-ray kasi lumabas yung ating incident photon at naging scattered X-ray. Sa Compton scattering, so yung backscatter, yung hazardous sa radtech, sa radiation workers. The removed electron is called Compton electron. There is a scattered X-ray kasi yung incident X-ray natin is lumabas and we call it a backscatter X-ray or radiation. So this occurs when the energy of the incident X-ray is moderate and about 20% ang chance na mag-occur ang Compton scattering or it is also called incoherent scattering. This one is also called coherent. Okay? So, because of the scatter radiation, so yung pinaka-negative effect niya aside sa hazardous siya sa radtech, isa sa mga negative effects niya is it decreases contrast because of the scattered X-ray. Contrast sa ating radiogram. Sa photoelectric effect, there is ionization, sabi ko, sa inner shell. Walang scattered X-ray because of absorption. The removed electron sa K-shell is what we call the photoelectron. Also occurs in diagnostic X-rays. So, yung good effect niya, increases contrast or gives white contrast. And yung negative effect niya or bad effect naman niya is increased patient dose. So, sa pair production naman, so walang ionization. So, nangyari yung pag-split sa nuclear space. And the electrons produced are of opposite charges. We have the positively charged electron and the negatively charged electron. So, the opposite of pair production is annihilation process. So, usually, nangyayari siya. Actually, hindi naman siya therapeutic. Di ba? Pag sa PET naman kasi, diagnostic pa rin siya eh. And para mangyari yung pair production, we have to have at least 1.022 MeV energy of the incident X-ray. For the photodisintegration, so sabi ko, it destroys the nucleus and produces nuclear fragments. And that examples of nuclear fragments that I have mentioned earlier are alpha, beta, gamma, and other nuclear fragments which are very hazardous sa katawan ng tao. So, nangyayari siya when there are atomic bombings and power plant accidents. And in order for the photodisintegration to occur, the energy of the incident photon must be greater than or equal to 7 MeV. Okay? So, to summarize, so sa classical scattering, ito siya, yung atom na half of the atom, dumaan lang. And then, it changes direction. Okay? So, classical siya. This is number 1. Sa Compton naman, so there is ionization sa outer shell. So, na-ionize yung outer shell. So, there is a secondary electron which is what we call the Compton electron. So, may ionization na nangyari sa outer shell. This is number 2. So, number 3, the photoelectric effect, there is ionization dito. Okay? So, may ionization dito sa loob sa K-shell. And the removed electron is what we call the photoelectron. So, walang scattered radiation. Ito may scattered. So, sorry. So, scattered X-ray, ito incident X-ray or radiation or photon. So, this is the incident photon. This is the scattered photon. Okay? Dito, incident photon lang, walang scattered photon. Sa number 4, sa pair production, so dito siya sa nuclear space. Pagdating dito sa nuclear space, nag-split siya into negatron and positron. And later, because this one is negative and this one is positive, they will unite. They will combine, and the process is called annihilation process. So, para mangyari ito, the energy of this must be greater than or equal to 1.022 MeV. Tapos sila, hatiin nila 0.511 MeV, 0.511 MeV. Then lastly, so I will erase this one. Then lastly, sa number 5, we have photodisintegration. So the incident photon will interact or bombard the nucleus, producing alpha, beta, gamma, and other nuclear fragments. Okay? So I hope that is clear now, and if you have questions, you may comment below or you can message me for clarification on what I have discussed in the 5 radiation interactions with matter. So until here for now, and stay safe everyone, and stay at home. So God bless.